Hello, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Nick Haynes. Did you know the hard candy coating on these M&Ms was invented right here in Kansas City at a place you may have passed multiple times at a building right off the plaza next to Brush Creek?
In that same place, they worked on the forerunner of the auto drip coffee machine. It's called the Midwest Research Institute, or MRI for short.
Now, they're not used to picking up a megaphone and telling their own story, but you'd be amazed at some of the things they work on. Fred Logan caught up with MRI's new leader, Dr. Michael Helmstetter.
Now, I know that in the 1950s, MRI was involved in working on the coating process for M&M candies, and in the 60s, it came up with, or worked on the technology that allowed the Apollo 11 command module to rotate.
Right.
What kind of things is it working on today?
Well, back to the M&Ms here, this is a lesson learned. Not only were we involved in that, we were involved in developing a technology for freeze-drying coffee and for the first drip coffee maker.
There we go.
And I wish that our patent intellectual property program had been as strong as our science and engineering program. It would be a very different MRI today. Those are great discoveries that we had. Today, we've really advanced. We still stay in the same areas of importance, so things like national security and defense. The demand for what we do best increased substantially after 9/11. We doubled in size as a company in the 5 years post 9/11. And one example of that is that we have what's called a biosurveillance laboratory that we set up on a handshake, essentially, in Washington right after 9/11, where they said, we want to be protected down here at the Capitol and the Senate buildings and the House buildings from the potential of an attack of a bioterrorism event. Can you set up an early warning 24/7 laboratory in the Capitol that could provide this service for us? And within 4 months we had it set up. We're still operating to this day. Over 1 million samples have been analyzed, essentially protecting that environment from a biosurveillance attack.
Speaking of that strength, I happened to see a video of one of the projects that you'd worked on, a robotic mannequin that you did in partnership with Boston Dynamics.
Right.
I think he's called Petman. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Petman?
Sure. That's an ongoing project for us for Department of Defense, and essentially that's exactly what it is. It's a robotic mannequin, and the idea is that this robot will act like a soldier. And so it has artificial flesh on it, it sweats, it breathes, it has temperature changes, etc., and does jumping jacks, squats, you name it. And inside that robot are sensors. And what we do is we put it essentially, we're building the robot right now. It'll ultimately end up in a chamber where we can expose that robot to different substances that would be in the atmosphere. The ultimate endpoint of it is to test protective equipment for soldiers that would be out in the battlefield that might be exposed to a chemical weapon, an explosive, a biological weapon, those kinds of things.
I want to give folks some idea of the breadth of the work of MRI, so let's move on to chicken manure and renewable energy. Tell us about the work that you're doing that's going to actually somehow create a renewable energy out of chicken manure.
Sure. One of my favorite subjects. Yeah, this is actually, it's a project we have. We have 2 farms south of Kansas City in both Grandview and Butler. In our Butler farm, we have a program to take chicken manure and essentially we combine it with sorghum, and we put it in what's called an anaerobic digester. Essentially, there's bacteria in there, and one of the major products of that is methane. And so you're taking a waste stream of this chicken manure, you're producing methane. The sorghum provides carbon and nitrogen, essentially, to get the bacteria to grow to cause this reaction. And the really neat thing about this, which you can tell I'm a scientist, is something nobody else has ever done. The effluent, the material that comes out of this system besides the methane, serves as food for algae so that you can create biofuel with algae downstream.
Now, MRI has also had a very long history, I think a 40-year history of cancer research.
We focus, Fred, in two different areas. The first area is evaluating the toxicity, the impact of certain chemicals on humans. We'd look at things like the nutraceutical or herbal products that you find on the shelf in the marketplace, like echinacea or kava kava or ginkgo biloba. We would look at those to determine, are there toxic characteristics, are there byproducts or contaminants in these materials, what's their potential impact on humans as we ingest these on a recurring basis. And so that's one of the main programs, is really looking at the positive and potentially negative impacts of of chemicals on humans. The second one is we do a lot of work, and we've been doing it for over 30 years for the National Cancer Institute, in looking at anti-cancer agents. So essentially testing, validating, and then becoming a supplier of anti-cancer and anti-tumor materials throughout the world. It's not just a national program, but it's an international program.
I know that MRI's been in Kansas City since 1944, just celebrated 66th anniversary. Is it a non-for-profit institution?
It is. It's unique, and there were several of these research institutes throughout the United States that were formed after World War II. And ours was the only one that was formed out of the business community. So 9 very creative and unique businessmen, we have names like Nichols and Patterson and Spencer, had this idea of forming this research institute using sort of the technology capabilities that came out of the war. In fact, our first project was figuring out how to take the ammonium nitrate that was used in explosives in the war and convert it to something that could be used for fertilizer back in peacetime here in the United States. So those 9 creative business leaders established this institute, saying, you know, we want it to be not-for-profit. We want it to focus on you know, the potential capabilities of this region, but also look at it on a national scale. And then let's keep it moving forward in terms of its growth and experience.
And the money, the grants, the contract money that comes in, that's all plowed into other MRI projects.
It is, and so that's one of the, I think, values of being a not-for-profit, is that, you know, this year with all of our activities in our managed labs will be $600 million in contract research. And any fee that we earn, any income we generate off of that, is immediately turned right back around into the Institute's growth. So we grew, as I mentioned, after September 11, 2001, we doubled in size. We have a goal over the next 5 years to double in size again. Well, that takes the best scientists, the best engineers, the best facilities, all those kinds of things, that this income that we generate essentially gets pushed back into the system. And I think it's important to recognize that we push a lot of money back into the community, whether that be United Way, Science Pioneers, Paseo Academy, the Blue Valley CAPS program. We really give back to the community significantly in what we do.
Now, one thing I think I probably should maybe close with is that this is MRI is a high security facility. This isn't something that the public can just come in and kind of mosey around in.
Well, yeah, you can't mosey around, but you know, we certainly make our operation, our facilities available to the public through some guided tours. So yes, a lot of the work that we do, even in the energy sector, is very proprietary, or it is of a nature for the Department of Defense that you can't have a lot of exposure. But with 260,000 square feet in our main facility here in Kansas City, there's a lot of things going on that people can see and have available to them. We have a lot of civic access to MRI, and we certainly like to show off what we do. We're very proud of what we do, and I think it's important for people to have access to that.
Well, you should be proud, and Michael Helmstetter, thank you very much for joining us on The Local Show.
Thank you, Fred. It's good to be here.
Thank you.